want to talk about 90s and the cool factor and whether I think that in general were teenagers cooler then than they are now, which I know is a highly subjective thing, but I mean, I have some thoughts on it. Having been a 90s teenager, started at age 12, ended at age 22, so I spent all of my teen years through the 90s, and I have some thoughts on then versus now. Welcome to Field Notes. My name is Helen. Let's get into it. So we know very much that teenagers drive and youth culture drives fashion, drives music sensibilities. That's a huge part of the culture at any given time since about the 1950s. Before the 1950s, youth culture, teen culture was not really a thing. But starting with the Bobby Soxers, they started to be this huge driving force in modern culture, in marketing. If you want a little bit of a glimpse into this, you can watch the movie American Graffiti, which was made, I think, in the 70s, but it is about being a teenager in the 50s, or watch actual 50s era movies about being a teenager then. Anyway, enter the 90s. There are a lot of problematic things going on in the 90s. You know, I actually just recently made a video on this channel about that. There was a lack of feeling safe very often because you didn't have the communication devices that you have today, and there was a lot of fat phobia going on. But if we set those two things aside, I think if we look at the music and the fashion of the 90s, they were top tier, and I don't think we ever really recovered the cool factor that we had back then. I know that's a bold claim, but let me explain. Okay, so picture the 90s. What you probably can't picture is that we did not have access to fast fashion, and that was actually an amazing thing. Everything just was of higher quality. I don't know what else to say. Things cost more and you were more thoughtful about them, and you put more thought into investing in things because you needed to have them for a while. You could not have a different outfit every single day in high school. Like, you had to rotate a little bit through it. I've heard stories of younger people saying that they cannot be seen out twice in the same outfit. Are you kidding me? The only way we would have, on a financial level, been able to afford that back then is if you swapped clothes with your friends, which was very common. A couple people would have like very nice things and then we would kind of borrow them from each other. And I feel like that is just like, you would never do that today. You wouldn't have to, because you've got your Shein and your other, fast fashion places. Even, Zara and H&M, they were not things then. You couldn't just easily pick up things. Like, for context, I remember a t-shirt costing about $20 then, and sometimes even $30. I definitely own t-shirts that cost $30 back then. $25 was like a pretty common price to pay for a graphic tee, sometimes more. Can you imagine how expensive that was in the year 1990? So consequently, when we bought into like subcultural trends, or if you wanted to dress a certain way, you kind of stuck with that look for a while. It didn't feel so frenzied and chaotic. And when you're kind of like chaotically chasing trends, the mob wife trend, the clean girl aesthetic, you're not cool. You're not cool. You're expending a lot of effort. And I don't know, a huge part of the 90s was also like being able to visually identify like subcultures among each other. And that wasn't always a force for good. There's like a lot of exclusionary stuff that happened out of that, mean girling, etc. But when you were in, you were in. If you were part of a bit of a subculture, like say you were into grunge, and I was into grunge in the 90s, a subculture of it, which we can talk about briefly. It was just like an instantly recognizable thing where you could go around and you could sort of see who was kind of into the same thing, like from a visual perspective. And I don't know that teens have that now because they cycle through things so quickly, except for maybe goths. They're still around and they're still highly visible, obviously, but it just hit different in the 90s. And once you were in that group, because the music really fueled the subcultures, you were in it for what I feel like was a lot longer than what I'm seeing now. Like, the whole grunge subculture that I was in, which was very much influenced by the look of Kurt Cobain's wife at the time, Courtney Love. She wore like a lot of pastels and a lot of kind of cutesy dresses and baby doll stuff with like Mary Jane shoes. That went on for years. Like most of my high school, that's how I dressed. Most of my high school years. And I don't feel like anything lasts anymore. And when you live in a look for a long time, it becomes effortless and it becomes cool. And I think also adults didn't understand it as well. They didn't really know what their eyes were like looking at back then. They certainly didn't understand the music. And I think that did lend a certain cool factor that I don't really think exists now, I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong. I would like to hear from you down in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this so far. So in the 90s, we had a lot of different subcultures. And as I recall, they were mostly based around music. And I don't think that is the trend today. Correct me if I'm wrong, perhaps they are, but it was just such a great foundational point to meet other people because music is like a universal language. If you enjoy the same music and you're in the same, I guess, subculture, then you have this instant connection with other people, which I don't want to romanticize. I don't. That's not always for the good. But you did feel like you were a part of something really cool back then. I don't know that people feel the same way. Like when grunge came out on the scene, for example, it was so weird compared to everything else that was going on the radio back then. And music itself was a lot more complex in the 90s as well. And it's become a lot more homogenized. And I don't think that people really realize that. Like some of the music that would fly in the 90s would never be made today. It just wouldn't. If you look at Guns N' Roses' November Rain, okay, for example, huge hit, right? Came out in 1991. The orchestral intro to that song is like, I think, over a minute long. Can you imagine that happening on the radio? Like nobody has the patience. You need to get like right into the lyrics, right into the song right away. It's all highly structured and it's almost mechanical. Like you could exchange these different songs among different groups. For the most part, I'm talking about like top 20, top 50 songs right now. And there's just no patience. There's no patience to have a weird song play out. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm just trying to think of like, even when Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana came onto the scene, it was groundbreaking and we knew that it was. It was such a grungy sound, which is, grunge is the name. But, there's so much distortion in a lot of the songs. Kurt Cobain mumbles, like his lyrics are very mumbly. It was confounding to adults. They would listen to that and think, what do you see in this music? And, being teenagers, we loved it for exactly that. And also just was really cool, was really groundbreaking, was amazing. It blew our minds in the 90s. How many songs can you say that? How many albums can you say that about these days? Not that many. You can look at bands like Stone Temple Pilots. Their sound was so different. You can look at bands like Weezer and listen to the song Buddy Holly, one of the stranger songs, probably still, that still gets played a lot and has really become part of the 90s lexicon of, honestly strange music that would never fly today. And I think that every generation, everybody my age thinks that the music from their generation was the best because that's how music hits, like it imprints in your brain in your teens. But I'm not the only one who's noticed that the landscape of music it has to hit certain beats. It has to be almost TikTokified, if that makes sense. So, we're seeing this quickness of evolution of things that I think erases all cool factor. Like you can't be cool if you're constantly chasing the latest thing. You need to have confidence in the music that you like and how you dress. You need to feel a bit more settled in it than what I'm seeing. So yeah, the key tenet I think of coolness is effortlessness and feeling comfortable in the music you've chosen, the fashion that you've chosen. That's the way I see it anyway. Okay, would love to hear your thoughts on the 90s. Would love to hear your thoughts on 90s music, which I think was like an amazing decade. I think the 80s were amazing too. I loved new wave music, for example. And I think culture got very popified after that. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Like we love Britney Spears circa early 2000s. I get it. But I think a lot of individuality was lost. A lot of settling in to weird music was kind of lost by that time. And it became less expressive and more commodified, as did clothing. The same thing happened. Like when you owned something back then, you had it for a long time. Things just lasted and it was okay to keep wearing the same thing over and over again. Okay, maybe you wouldn't want to wear it 4 days in a row. That would be considered kind of gross, but you could wear the same look. You could rotate your clothes. You could borrow and exchange clothes. I don't see that happening anymore. I'm sure it is done just as a matter of necessity, but that's not seen as cool. And it was back then. Anyway, all right, I'm going to leave it off there. Hope you enjoyed this little balloon of thoughts that came to me that I wanted to share. We'll see you in the next video.